Welcome to the First Gen 101 podcast. Today, I am joined by Elizaveta Shafir. She's the founder of Intentional Money, a service that empowers women and families to build financial clarity and confidence on their own terms. In this conversation, Elizaveta will share her personal journey, how she empowers others through intentional money, insights into the value of education, networking, and career growth while maintaining a healthy balance along the way. These are critical conversations for the first gen community, and I am excited for you to hear her perspective. Elizaveta, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am fascinated by your experience and career. You completed a master's degree from MIT and currently work for a well-known technology company. It also struck me that you became financially independent from your parents by the age of 20. How did that experience shape the way you think about money?
There are a lot of things that come to mind, but I will start with sharing a memory. How when I called my mom to tell her that she doesn't need to send me money anymore. It was the last year of my undergrad. I found my first job and I was super excited that now I will have my own money and I will be able to afford more things. But right after graduation from my undergrad, the real adult life started when I needed to rent my own place outside of student house, when I needed to pay for all the expenses, not just food, but plan for life. And then that was the first time when I actually started planning beyond 1 month. Up until that moment, I lived like, I look at my account, I know how much money I have left. That's it. That's all I had to know. But then I started planning first for months. And then at some point, my planning horizon extended for a few years. When you start thinking about what is my next career move, that big vacation I want to take, or when you start thinking about long-term relationship and family, or maybe additional education like going to grad school, that's when planning horizon extends significantly. So I think that was the first experience with money. First, start budgeting, and then extending planning horizon from months to years.
Do you remember what was your first paycheck when you finally realized I can do this on my own? Do you remember how much money you made?
So I was back in Russia then. So my paycheck was in Russian rubles, and it was also my first job was a part-time job. But if I convert it to dollars at that moment of time, it would probably be $300. So
Wow,
that
you
was,
were rich.
yeah, oh, I was rich. It was, again, to put it into comparison, it was approximately 3 times more that my mom was sending me every month. So that was a significant increase in my available resources at the time.
So when you were saying that your mother was sending you money, where were you in terms of distance?
So again, I mentioned I'm from Russia. I was studying in Moscow and living in a student house, my university. I'm originally from Chelyabinsk. That's a city 2.5 hours flight away from Moscow in the Urals region. So we saw each other twice a year during summer break and winter break. And that's pretty much it. I lived in Moscow in a student house.
What did you major in school?
My major was economics with foreign languages. So that was the time when I actually learned English.
I actually saw this on your website that you moved to the United States with your family when you were 27. I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
And you mentioned having to learn the new financial culture. What was new to you in this financial culture?
Oh my God, everything was new. It's actually interesting. Let me start with mentioning a few tactical details. It was just hard figuring out banking system, all the institutions, and there were some things which were hard to understand. For example, you cannot rent a place without the credit history,
Hmm.
but to start credit history, you need a credit card. To have a credit card, you need address. To have address, you need to have your rental. Oftentimes, I just felt that we are in this loop, which
Hmm.
is impossible to break. And for every newcomer, you have to navigate the whole system, which you have no idea how it works, no one to help. So that was hard from just purely tactical perspective. From
Hmm.
cultural perspective, the attitude to money was different, and it took me actually many years to adapt my thinking. In developing and growing cultures, the idea of investment is not really popular yet because of many different reasons, historical reasons of feeling unsafe with money, that investment, if you invest money, you will actually lose them. Maybe political or economical instability doesn't allow you to plan long term. No one thinks about 10, 20, 30 years, so people don't really invest money. So the first few years after I came here, if I had any money saved, it was all sitting in a checking account. That's it. Like I knew nothing about investments, about planning for retirement. I remember my first job, it was in Chicago. My first day in orientation, and HR representative asks me how many percent I'm going to contribute to my 401k. And I'm looking at her, what is 401k? And she's silent. I think she has never seen a person like who honestly has never heard this word before. I'm like, I don't know what you're asking me about. And then I'm grateful to her. She told me, okay, the company matches 4%. Just put there 4%. And that's what I did. That's the best I knew at the time. I'm grateful I followed this advice. But that's how it is for newcomers, for immigrants, right? You have to really start from scratch. And then years later, I think I adopted this thinking about long term planning, long term investment, thinking about retirement, also realizing that I'm responsible for my own future, not like government, not family, not anyone else, but it's me. So yeah, now it feels different than back then.
It's interesting that you started developing the skill of planning and budgeting when you made that phone call to your mother about stop sending you money because you finally were able to have your own incomes, your own cash flow. But then later on, when you moved to the United States, now you really had to put into practice
Yeah.
this planning, but now in the long term, and
Yeah.
highlighted by your example of the 401k, which I'm glad that you did it when you could. That's one of the regrets that I have that I didn't start it when I should have, but that's part of learning. So, on the note of teaching, tell us about your initiative, Intentional Money, and how you help people in their financial journey.
Yeah. So I've been on this journey on figuring out my own finances basically since I was 20, as we discussed, and I was learning a lot, again, budgeting, then figuring out US financial system, and then learning how to plan for retirement, and then figuring out investment. Then after I joined my current company, I started to get part of the compensation in RSU, so restricted stock units, which is a company stock. I had to figure out what to do with that. There was so much learning, but at the same time, I realized that I love learning about this. So it wasn't a forced learning. I was actually curious. I read enormous amount of books about the topic, listened to many podcasts, and I just accumulated so much knowledge. And at some point, I started sharing with friends. Like oftentimes, when like dinner conversation or meet up with friends and girlfriends, were becoming conversations about finances, and people were asking me, "Hey, how do you invest? How do you think about retirement? How do you calculate whether it's better to rent a place or buy a place?" And I started sharing my views on those things. And then at some point, I realized that I could share it with more people, not just friends. A few months ago, not that long ago, back in September, I made actually a decision to make it a thing, not just a kitchen conversation. So I launched my website. I'm now offering services of one-on-one consultations. I had some online webinars. I also started teaching kids financial literacy.
Mm.
I also believe that if we educate children, they will grow up financially mindful adults. We as adults now have a lot of catching up to do. If we teach our kids, they will grow up prepared for their adult life. So the last few months, I'm focused on establishing my practice. I'm also getting my certification to become accredited financial counselor, just to support my knowledge and knowing that I'm not just sharing my personal advice, but I can actually provide industry standard like knowledge of high quality.
As you were learning these skills and sharing with other people, it seems to me that not only was the knowledge and advice important, but you realized that people were actually listening to you. And that's a great first step, even for people who are figuring out a career, like figure out what you're good at. We'll post the link to your website on the show notes, and we'll also have it on the podcast so people can find it and reach out to you if they have more questions or if they want to interact with you further on this topic. You already mentioned that you have this love for learning, but there's also a need to understand which career path could be the right one for you. And so for many of our first gen students, our first gen community, we are told that education is the path. You should go to school, you should earn a degree, but we don't always learn how to evaluate its costs. How should people think about education as a financial and career investment rather than just earning a credential?
We can look at it from several different angles. And first of all, I want to say that I am all fully supportive of getting education and degree, and I myself have undergrad degree and 2 master's degrees, and I think it's great to have this opportunity to learn, and everyone should pursue it. But we need to be mindful of the choices. When you think about education, there are 4 things which I think the college or university degree gives. First is the degree itself, right? Whether it's bachelor or master's, it's a degree. The second is knowledge. And again, those things are not necessarily coming together, right? So it's degree, it's knowledge. The third thing is the university name. That's like a brand name you get now on your resume. And the fourth thing is your network and community support and access to opportunities. So if you think about these 4 things, they may or may not necessarily come together, but also an individual person may also not necessarily need all of them. So when choosing the school or choosing the path, start with evaluating what exactly do you need. If you need a degree, then maybe I'll choose the path which is the easiest just to get a degree. If you think about the knowledge, I also think that today with all the modern AI technologies and internet, there is almost nothing you can't learn from the internet, right? So from knowledge perspective, I would say that universities and colleges losing a little bit this appeal, but you cannot replicate or almost cannot replicate the network and community and support, right? So then you need to think about choosing the place which will give you the access to the opportunities you're actually looking for. So like all these 4 dimensions, they will inform the choices. But then another thing which is important to remember, that the education is only a step towards something you're actually going to do in life, right? It's not the end. It's a step towards your future life. So what do you want to do? Do you actually need degree, or you just need knowledge, or you need access to opportunities? Again, optimizing for what you actually need is important, and being honest with yourself, like what you're going to do with this education. Oftentimes people pay for the degree, they graduate, they have this diploma, and they have no idea what they're going to do with it. Or they realize that the profession now they're in is not even the thing they want to do going forward. Then why so much time and money spent, right? So before actually investing money and time, it's worth asking yourself and think, what is that I want to do? And what do I need to get there? Now, thinking about money, the kind of simple math here, the faster you can get education, the better. Because education, first, it costs money by itself. And if it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 6, or 10 years, obviously, the longer it takes, the more money you will spend for education. But the second important piece, oftentimes is underestimated, is the time off work, right? Every year you're studying, if you're studying full time, is the year you're not earning. So it's basically doubling your expenses. That's why comparing options for education, it's not just, again, the degree and the university and the program, but how long does it take? And you work during the time you're studying. Again, there also could be compromises. It can take longer for you to get your degree, but you can work in parallel. Or you can finish it faster by doing it full time, and then go work full time, maybe with a higher pay. So understanding these options and comparing them is very important to make the choice which is right for you and for your family. In my case, when I went to study at MIT,
Mm.
I went on campus just for 5 months. I think it's the fastest, like you can actually get a master's degree by being on campus. But before that, I studied 1.5 years online.
Hmm.
That was a kind of that was a huge deal. Like paying just for one semester on campus and being for just half a year off work, it's the best ROI you can get from master's degree. But at the same time, it was hard to study for 1.5 years online and just staying consistent and getting good grades and maintaining motivation.
You highlighted some really great points. I'm just going to summarize a few of them. And then if there's anything else you want to add, please do. This idea that you should think about the degree and knowledge. They're not always mean the same thing. The network, which we'll talk about later as part of this conversation. But the thing that I want to highlight is the opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
You spend 4 years in school. If you go to school full time, you're foregoing 4 years of salary. So therefore, that has to be part of your calculation that you have to make the money back at some point, right? I think that's a great point because nowadays, and we see this on the news, and we can do searches online that a lot of students, whether they're first gen or not, are coming out of college without finding jobs that pay them a certain
Mhm.
salary. And so
Yeah.
there is this general discontent towards education because a person might say, I just spent 4 years making a little bit of money or no money, and now you're telling me that you're going to pay me a very low salary when I made this huge
Yeah.
investment. So I really want to highlight that point to the listeners is think about the opportunity cost. Think about the money that you're not making by going
Yeah.
to school. I want to go back on the MIT topic, unless you want to add anything else to this. How did you, because you mentioned thinking through what's what degree and what knowledge you need. What was your thought process and how did you decide that MIT was the best next step for you?
Yeah. I was already in United States, so I was working in Chicago, and I was working in supply chain planning. So
Mhm.
that was the field I was already for many years, and I was basically working in the same. We will need to cut it. So I was working in Chicago. I was doing supply chain planning, and that was what I loved, and I wanted to continue doing this.
Mhm.
But as a new immigrant, it was hard for me to aim for a higher position or a bigger company. I tried to go through interviews. I tried to apply to kind of again manager position, higher position, better companies, and I could not. I wasn't even invited to interviews, and I realized that my resume is missing something for me to stand out. I just came to the country. While I knew that I had great education and great knowledge, it didn't necessarily come out from my resume because what
Mhm.
recruiters saw that I just came to the country, I have a little of experience in the country, they see education, they don't know these universities, so they thought that maybe I'm not a good fit. So I wasn't even given a chance to come to interviews. And then I thought that going to school in the United States is the right thing for me to do. By that time, I already completed the online course. So I didn't need to start over again. I was building on top of the foundation I built before from completing the online course, which was, again, 1.5 years of work. And then I applied to MIT. I didn't even apply to any other schools. So it wasn't like I applied for 10 schools and got accepted. I knew that was the path for me. Again, it was 5 months program. It's one of the best names you can imagine from university perspective. And the program was exactly in supply chain management. So it was just a perfect match. And I applied and I got accepted. And I knew that was the path for me. If I wouldn't get accepted, probably I wouldn't go to school. Probably I would look for other ways advancing my career. Probably again, it's hard to say what would have happened. Probably it would have taken more time for me to get where I am now, but definitely that was a huge accelerator. Basically, after half a year, after access to career office support, community, network, it was way easier to basically land the job. Now I want to say dream job, but actually at that moment, I wouldn't even dream about it. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
another huge benefit and advantage of actually going to college or getting a degree is being exposed
Mm-hmm.
so many great things which you wouldn't even dream about because you don't know that you can dream about them. So this idea that it just broadened your horizons so much. Yeah, I didn't even dream about the life I have now because I didn't know I could dream about it.
Having this MIT name really changed how recruiters or employers looked at you. And it might work the other way, right? If you're in the United States and you move to another country, it could be the same thing. Maybe you need
Absolutely.
to earn a degree or be certified in some way in the home country with their
Yes.
institutions. So it's about understanding the branding part, right? It's part of the growth. On the question of career growth, you recognize that you needed this degree, but you also mentioned networking. What are some ways professionals, especially first gen, can start building their network?
I think like I'm still learning. I think all of us are
Mhm.
work in progress. And you also asked me before about like cultural aspect of finances. Networking also has a lot of cultural aspects. A
Mm.
lot of cultures are actually not that open as American culture, but I also had to learn that here it's way easier to approach people,
Mm.
and the majority of people would be happy to help. And generally speaking, people around you or people who already achieved some level of success, or maybe they're just one step ahead of you, right? They don't need to be successful like in everything. They just need to be one step ahead of you. They want you to succeed too, right? They want you to help. So if you are already at school, there is career offers, there are career fairs,
Mm.
there is alum community. Every school has alumni community. Just reach out to alumni, say, I'm interested in your path. I want to learn how you get wherever you are because your story is inspiring. The majority of people will be happy to help and share their story. Same happens at work.
Mm.
If I see someone who is in the role or in the team which looks inspiring for me, or someone's path looks like the path I would love to take, I just approach a person. Like, even if I don't know a person, I can just message them like, "Hey, would you be willing to chat with me like for half an hour? I want to learn something from you." On my part, I try to always pay it forward to someone who is still on their journey. From when someone from MIT community or even my home country university community reaches out to me, I try to always help with resources, with other connections. If it's not me who can help, maybe I know someone who can help. So just don't be afraid to reach out to people. And if they say no, that's okay. Someone will say yes.
Mhm.
But don't be shy to ask for help. There are people who want to help.
I've seen this, and I think you've seen this too, that more likely than not, people want to help others. So even if you get a no, like you said, if you ask five people and two tell you no or just don't respond to you, you still have to try, keep pursuing that. So that's great advice to keep looking at those people who you admire in a way, or you kind of want to see yourself and pursue them because they want to help. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about life balance. I think a big part of career growth is, and you might see this in your career, the more you advance and depending on the company you work for, it may be more demanding, right? It's with growing, with tenure, you get more responsibilities. And so that may affect your life balance. And life balance is one of those things that we see online and we see people talk about. I want to have a job that has a good life balance. So I want to ask you, what does life balance look like for you right now? While you're managing a career, you have your specialized service through intentional money, studying for the AFC, doing the podcast today, and your family. How are you managing all those things to have a healthy life balance?
Yeah, I would say that's not easy,
Mm.
but I think the secret is just doing what you love. And when I think about my intentional money project or time with my family, this is all energizing. So that gives me energy. And this time usually flies very fast. And I value this time I can actually dedicate to these areas of my life. Work is more structured. So at work, we usually have less flexibility, especially if it's a corporate work. It has certain hours which we need to be there. But at the same time, it's important to not just know what you want to do. It's important to know what you do not want to do, right? And just say no to all other things. And say no is hard. And again, I'm still learning and getting better at it. Saying no at work as well. Like, it's not just saying no in life, but at work, the more people know you as an expert, the more requests you will get, the more projects you will get. Your manager will want to make you more things. And sometimes people joke that you don't need to be that good at work, so don't be good. People will not give you more work, right? But that's not what we're after. We actually want to be good. But then you get into this trap, you become good, and people want you to work even more. So saying no to work is also a skill. Prioritizing the kind of projects or kind of assignments which are meaningful to you as well, not just your team or the company. Again, I don't want to say that it's always possible. There is always a trade-off, but still keeping focus on this is helpful. Like the win-win in life overall, not just at work, happens when your internal motivation aligns with external motivation, right? You do thing that you want to do, and that's the same thing that your manager wants you to do. That makes everyone happy. It makes you productive and energized. That gives better results. The same outside of work. Other people may want you to do something, and that's always good to check. Is it the same thing that you want to do? If it's the same thing, it's a win-win. If it's not the same thing, then saying no is important. And the way I try to reframe it for myself when saying no is hard is when we say no to something, it allows us to say yes to something else. That's saying yes to that version of ourselves we are becoming. And that's not just about like money or career, it's everything. If I want to say no to myself buying that another dress, it's hard because I want this dress. But what does it actually mean? That I'm saying yes to my financial independence in the future. And that makes the choice way easier. Okay, I don't need the dress. I actually want me to become financially independent. The same is, I don't know, we are going to a party and maybe I'm thinking about another glass of wine. And it's hard to say no because it's fun. Or I want to say yes to me being rested and full of energy tomorrow. So I have, again, energy to do all the things I want to do. So just thinking what I'm saying yes to when I say no to something else actually helps to make these decisions when it's hard.
All these ideas you shared with us, and I can tell very easily why you're a very successful person, is because you have a very clear idea of certain habits that if you apply them in different areas of your life, you're going to do pretty well. So one of the things that you've mentioned is being a good planner, understanding how you invest your energy. And you gave us some examples of how to pick a school and how to pick an education. You talked about perseverance and how to develop your network. And you gave us some examples. And this one in particular really stood out to me because discipline is such a big deal, so to speak. I can't think of a different way to say it, but discipline is really key to do all those things that you already mentioned, right? Because if you don't do it consistently, you might do it well in the beginning, but then
For a short period of time. Yeah.
correct. And I think the key here is being able to say no. That's what's going to give you the discipline to be able to carry out. I thought that was great. What has been your biggest lesson helping people in their financial journey?
I will probably say something cliche, but it works. So in that area as well, life is a marathon, and it you cannot do things in small sprints or just because today you decided to start a new life. the consistency, just consistency of small steps for a really long time. That's what makes a difference. It will not help if you have a budget for 1 month and then you can't sustain it, or if you invest once and you never invest it again. You better invest $10 every week for the rest of your life. That's what will give you actual sustainable results. So staying consistent and thinking long term is the best thing anyone can do.
And I think you have given us many great examples of how you've carried that in your life. So I appreciate this conversation. We're going to put the link to your website on the podcast. How can they connect with you and learn more about intentional money?
So first, I maintain my website, which is intentional.money. You can read about me, my story, read my blog. I actually love writing, so you'll find a lot of thoughts there. I'm also pretty active on Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram. We can also add the link to the notes. It's intentional.money_e.shafir is my name. And also I'm on LinkedIn.
Terrific. Elizaveta, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.